Y'all, listen. If there is one thing I've learned, adversity does not build character. Adversity reveals character. I'm Barbie Bassett, and I invite you to join me and my friends, Therese Apel and Traci Lee, as we peel back those adversity layers to see what else is revealed. Hey, y'all listen here. We are back. We are back again. And I'm just sitting here listening to the introduction, the music there. And when I say Therese Apel and Traci Lee, I'm looking at you and I'm pointing at my lovely friends here with me for this episode of Y'all Listen Here. Welcome back, by the way. I've got Therese Apel here with me with Dark Horse Press. Say hey, Therese.
Hello, everyone.
Y'all,
Glad to be here.
Does she just not look fabulous with that red hair and the blue on today?
Red, white, and blue.
I am
Always have
loving
been.
it. It is not even July yet.
Very American.
I love it. And Traci Lee, who's here with Your U.S. Country 96. I like to say US 96.3.
Yeah.
I like to say the point because on my dial, I still look at the point.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll take it, whatever.
Okay.
That's fine.
And by the way, bows are in the season. And who is wearing the bow?
Let me tell you something. I've always worn bows in my hair. Like I'll put them in my ponytail, and I've always done that. My sister is mortified. She would always send me a text, and she's like, "You're 40 years old. Take the bow out of your hair." But now they're in trend. So I'm like, bows everywhere. Bows on the shirt, bows on the ears. I'll put bows in my hair.
Bows on the
them.
pants. I'm seeing bows on people's pants now.
You can't go wrong with a bow.
I know.
I have a friend in Florida. This is a good podcast, so I won't tell you what she calls it, but it's a BI bow is what she calls it. And she says, I know when you have a bow in your hair, not to mess with you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So it's kind of
that gives you some sass.
It's not, but that's what she calls them.
Yeah.
Well, I still remember in high
Look at you with that wink.
Yeah, I still remember in high school when we wore bows in our hair, like a high ponytail and then a big bow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like that made me invincible.
Those were fun
100%.
times.
There's something about a bow. It's powerful.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Powerful.
Well, somebody who is not wearing a bow today is our producer, Daniel Anderson, because Daniel doesn't have much hair. You couldn't even fit a bow in your hair, could you, Daniel?
Don't ever underestimate
Daniel,
me.
I will find a way. We will get one in there.
We're going to get Daniel.
I wish we had a camera right now on Daniel. Daniel, do you have your own camera? There he is, y'all. Now you see the man. You see the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain. And
listen, if Khloe Kardashian can bling out her microphone,
right?
We can put bows on your headphones.
Facts.
100%.
We could totally do it. And speaking of, Daniel here is the owner of Audio Alchemy Productions, and he is our producer. So if you've ever thought about having your own podcast, you need to give him a ring because, as you can tell, he looks pretty good behind the microphone and in front of the microphone. Yeah. So
that's right.
Stop it. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, I know. Well, it has been a minute since we were last together, and we were literally texting last night or early this morning on, hey, what y'all want to talk about today?
Right.
And Therese, you had the suggestion of the week. And just by the way, just in case you're just now joining us, maybe this is your first time to watch us either live or on the replay of Y'all Listen Here, we really don't spend much time thinking about these topics. But what we do many times is we talk about maybe something that we're dealing with individually. Yes. And you brought up a great topic.
So the last year or so for me, I mean, my whole life, but especially a lot lately, I've struggled with weight issues. I've struggled with, am I good enough? I've struggled with, am I a has-been now? What's my career doing? What's my hair doing? I mean, just across the board, am I good enough? Because I think we're all geared to want to be the prettiest girl in every room we walk into. Mm-hmm. And that's not possible for anybody, And so it's like, as I've gotten to this age, I have to stop and I have to give myself grace, but also have to remind myself where I came from. So that's where this thought came from was, I was sitting there fighting with myself because feeling like I'd gained too much weight this year and I don't have the willpower to do X, Y, Z, and it's this and that, and I'm not worth it. And then I thought, no, you know what? These standards I'm holding myself to, they don't count. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, I want to be healthy, but ultimately we need to talk about these things because these are things that everyone that listens to us deals with on some level or another too. Just basic insecurities, basic things that we all think I'm not good enough.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. And I think I would be very candid to say that what I have personally gone through in over the last year and a half, less than 2 years, we call it the situation,
The catastrophe.
the catastrophe.
Yes.
Yes. Who one of you said something about the burning down or something? I can't remember exactly what it was. But, when I had my situation and I was let go in a very public manner, I began to second guess what other people were thinking about me. What are people going to think about me when they see me out at the grocery store? Or what are people saying about me behind my back? Or do they really think that I'm a bad person based on everything that, was being talked about or put out there on social media? And it really wrecked me. And in some cases still has. In fact, I've been going to counseling lately because you begin to second guess who you are based on what you've gone through.
Yep.
Would you agree with that? Whether it's past traumas or past things that people have said to you or past situations that have happened. And it's hard for you to move forward when that's always on your mind, worried, can I move past this? Can people move past this? Are people thinking the worst of me? And for so long, I thought, I'm a type A personality. I'm a pretty strong girl. I can get through this. But the more that I have gone through this, the more I realized sometimes you just need a little bit of help to get you past the disappointment in yourself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, there has been, if I've been in therapy now for 7 years as of February 14th. And that's what we call my sobriety date, even though my diagnosis is complex PTSD with an eating disorder. So where other people, an eating disorder is an addiction.
Yes.
It's just a lot harder to cure because you can't stop eating. You can't go cold turkey. So we call that my sobriety date, but clearly I have not been able to beat my overeating. And so, I mean, just since I started this journey 7 years ago, what I have figured out is that, and it's only been in the last couple of weeks that we have hit head on the thing where it's cliche. If you don't love yourself, nobody else is going to love you either. But one of the things that we talked about actually yesterday was I will not sit down and journal. I will not face my own feelings. I can tell you about them all day with a straight face. I might get a little teary-eyed, but because I write, I don't generally confront emotions. I just regurgitate words because that's what I do. So we talked about how I have to actually sit and listen to myself and talk to myself and love the person that's telling me about this pain. The same way I would listen to one of you in your pain. I don't do that for myself. And so I would have never come to that. And I still haven't done it. That was just yesterday. It's going to take me a minute. But I would have never come to that myself. I would have heard that cliche over and over again. But having that help, to understand like I am worthy of being loved just like anybody else. But until I stop and say, Therese, talk to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might think that's hokey, but, we've all lived 1,000 lifetimes in our lifetime. We've been different people. And each one of those people was hurt in some way or another, which made us transition to the next phase of our personality.
Well, I look at both of you and how when my situation happened, how both of you came to my rescue. And I think that's what we do. Many times as females, I'm sure guys do it too, but it is so easy for us to come to the rescue of other people, but coming to the rescue of ourselves, that is so much harder. I think Daniel's given us a little amen here on the side. Coming to the rescue of ourselves is so hard. And that's another discussion that, you can have. Why is it so easy for me to help other people, but I can't help myself?
I think we feel like we don't deserve it because we know who we are behind closed doors, and we know what we hide from other people. We know We can't hide it from ourselves. And those are the voices that are the loudest. I think the thing for me, being a single female, I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody enough to be like, I will come to you to help you comfort me, maybe sometimes even myself. So for me, what that looks like is trusting God to be who he says he is with me, just like he is with everybody else. It's been a process of learning this part of him, of me letting the guard down enough to let the person who created me, the God who created me, in enough to trust he's not going to break me. I think that we hear these things at church, and well-meaning people tell us, you've got to be broken, you've got to hit rock bottom, you have to do these things. And it's like, God, you don't want to give it to him because you don't want him to hurt you. You don't want him to take everything away from you if you surrender everything to him. Like Lisa Turkhurst has a book right now, like I Want to Trust You, But I Don't.
Right.
And it talks about her going through her marriage and the infidelity of her husband. And when she met her now husband, how she had to she struggles with those things that her husband hurt her with now her new husband. And trusting God to fix that. And I think there comes a point in time in ourselves where we have to be like, I have to trust you with what you created. I have to. And that is a very vulnerable place. I did start journaling several years ago, and my sister is under strict instructions. If anything happens to me, burn them. There are names and dates in them, and I don't hold back. But the way that is cathartic to me is the pen becomes my emotion, and my emotion lives on that page. And that is why I'm out of jail today. I will punch somebody real quick, but I just try to get it out because bad things grow in dark places, and we have a tendency to cover them up. But having that mental picture in my head of that little girl that has been so hurt and was so trusting and would always see the best in everybody and couldn't understand why somebody would do that. Like, I literally was shocked when people were mean or they didn't, my mind couldn't compute it because that's not how my family unit was. That's not how I grew up. So when you get outside of your comfort zone and people start hurting you, I didn't know how to handle that. Yeah. And letting that little girl crawl up in the lap of a savior and rest and be safe has been in my mind's eye where I have been recently, where I have just curled up and sat there and been like, okay, I'm a mess. You know everything that I struggle with. I do things I'm not supposed to. And I need you to just take care of me. And he so willingly reaches down in our dirt and pulls us up. So willingly. And if you look at the gospel, if you look at the story from the beginning, from Genesis to Revelation of who God is and who he created Jesus to be and how all of this stuff is for us, who he created us to be, to need him that way. He's not setting us up for failure. That's not who he is. It's not in his nature. He is there for us. We just have to let him catch us. I mean, it's that simple. Just stop and take a breath and be caught by the one who created you. He didn't have to have us. He wanted us. He wants us. And we have to just pause and do that. We have to do it.
I'm seeing some of the comments that are coming in. If you're watching us live, of course you can comment and we see. If you're watching this on replay, we typically see your comments after the podcast is over with. Janice says there's nothing wrong with going to therapy. Been going to therapy since 1989. Alfie says likes the fact of thinking that he has control. Of course, Ashley saying this is so good. So glad I accidentally swiped. Well, we are glad that you accidentally swiped as well. And of course, Angela saying a big amen to that. Because we teach, well, as a parent, I'll speak for my own self and of course my own parents, teaching our kids to be strong, teaching that boys don't cry and girls just hold it together, just squeeze. And because we heard a lot of that as we were growing up and as myself as a mom teaching my own kids to just, turn the other cheek or hold on to it. Then finally, when you do have those moments, and like you were saying, Tracy, you're outside of your family bubble where people have arrows pointed at you all of the time, it is so much harder to be able to handle our own disappointments. And we begin to worry about what people are thinking about us or are saying about us. And it's just a difficult place to be in for anybody.
Well, and I think it's hard to remember too, but you're sitting there worried about what people think about you or what they say about you. Most people are not thinking about you. Now,
That's
all
right.
of us have very public lives. So, Barbie, I know there was a time that a lot of people were thinking about you and
Yes.
talking about you. I think we've all had a moment. You had a lot more than a moment, but I think we've all had a moment like that. And in that, that's where I don't so much, Tracy, you were talking about how, we have things that we're ashamed of or whatever. I'm weird in that I don't have guilt or shame about things in my past or whatever. But my big hang up is always like my therapist will say, well, why don't you like yourself? And I'll say, I do like myself. And, well, then what's the problem? I don't understand why other people don't like me. And so then it becomes there must be something fundamentally so wrong with me that I can't make lasting friendships. I mean, obviously this has changed this year, being more intentional and you guys, but why can't I make lasting relationships? Why can't people understand me? Those kind of things. There has been a large part of my life where I have had these feelings that, gosh, I'm so weird. I'm so different. And you have to stop and you have to, when you feel like that, even if you are weird and different, I mean, even if I am entirely as weird and different as I'm afraid that I am, still, like you said, the creator that made me did that for a purpose. And so it's hard to know how to embrace the things about you that may make you look in the mirror and go, ugh, why is this me? Why couldn't I have just been, that pretty girl with the big bow that was the lead, the head cheerleader? Why couldn't I have been, any of these people that I looked at all my life and said, if I don't end up like her, I'm not good enough. Look in the magazines. If I'm not her, I'm not good enough. Well, they're not good enough either. There is something about every really impressive person that you see and go, I wish I was her, that is just as insecure as we are.
Yeah, and maybe this is just one of those things that I'm just now coming to the realization with in my life, but it's almost like it's like the Holy Spirit's working on me to see a different side of these insecurities, whereas we question, like, why don't people like me? I like me. I think I'm a pretty fun girl, or those types of things, where I'm beginning to think that some of this, if not all of this, is a protection that the Holy Spirit is giving us. Yes, you're right. You are loved by so many and you're loved by yourself. So why don't you like me, or why am I have insecurities about this? It could be that the Lord is wanting to protect us, to keep us away from those people who can't handle us the way he has created us to be. Is that making sense?
Wait, so you're saying that the reason that some people don't like us is because God is like, that's a protection thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. I'm just throwing this out there for discussion.
Yeah.
Well, and you have to think about when you look through the Bible, the people that God used through things in their lives that had to make them, like when we talk about Joseph, okay, why don't people like me? My own brothers just sold me into slavery.
Yeah, he was a punk, though.
Yeah, well,
Joseph was a punk. Like, he was a punk. And I mean, I know he was, I'm not talking bad about Joseph. I don't want to have that discussion when I get to heaven. But he was a punk to his brothers. I mean, I don't know if he was just oblivious, but he was like, look at my coat my dad made me.
Right.
I mean, I might have thrown him in a pit too.
Well, but okay, but let's fast forward to Potiphar's wife.
Now that's different.
Okay.
That's grown up Joseph. But
Yeah.
Joseph as a kid was a jerk.
Fair
Okay.
enough.
All
But
right.
have you ever sold any of your siblings into slavery?
No, but
Because
I have wanted to.
not.
Yes. Look, if we're going to be real, let's be real, okay? Just saying. And I'm not saying which one because I have two. I'm going to let y'all duke it out.
Well, I'm hoping none of mine are watching right now.
To my brother and sister, you're welcome. But yeah, so the point is, though, I mean, how many I was about to say transitions, I guess is the right word, did Joseph have where it's like he was not in control at all of what's being said about him, what's being done to him, whatever. But the next thing you know, there he is just hanging around being second to Pharaoh one day, and these people come in and they're like, we need food. And all of a sudden he's like, oh, I know y'all.
Yeah,
You
so
know?
it's almost like he was taken out of one field, okay, And he was put into another area to protect him so God could work on him and protect him from his brothers.
Yeah.
So that way he could get him to that next step of basically being second in command to
Right.
in Egypt, kind of
But
like
he
the
had to
governor.
grow up.
Yeah.
I mean, he had to get through that punkness that he had. He was the favorite child. He did. His father doted on him because of his mom. I mean, he was the one that was going to get everything. He got the coat. He wasn't working. His brothers were. He went out to show his coat. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking bad about Joseph. I'm just saying the progression of who he became was because of the hardship that he had to face. God had to move him out of the favoritism position and put him in the we're going to get you ready to serve position. And that was the prison.
And I think we all have something like that because I'll be honest, if you remember me from college, there was a real good time that I was Regina George.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember one of my best friends looking me in the face and being like, I am not your sidekick. I am a human being. But I was just that, come on, girls, we're going. And now that is so opposite to the personality that I am.
Yes.
But to be fair and to kind of stay on topic here, that was absolutely a shield that I put up. That was a big defense. And when I realized that it worked and that I could kind of order people around and kind of control my world that way, that's who I was. And you know what? A lot of things happened to me in college. A bad boyfriend. And then, you know, just you go through that period of time where, oh my gosh, I don't know if I actually want to go into journalism. It's so, in my mind, it was so narcissistic. So I start being a substitute teacher and I didn't have any money. And every one of us has that trajectory. And it's, do you let God take you through it? And each time you hit a valley, you have to stop and say, what is God doing here? So even though I feel like right now, you know, I'm entirely unlovable. I mean, hypothetically, you know, you're in that place where it's like, gosh, I'm all by myself. I mean, a lot of dealing with my dad's death was, am I strong enough for this? You know, there's so much that we go through in our minds every day. And you have to remember that as you sit there, you're absolutely sitting at the feet of God, whether you're paying attention to that fact or not. And I have to laugh at Ashley. She knew which one you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Poor Jody.
It's almost kind of like when you have something or someone who's a favorite, you like to hold it close. The last thing you want to do is share that thing or share that person. And it's like I'm seeing the Lord look at all of us, really, and probably many who are watching or who are listening to this replay, that while we see our traumas and our detriments and our past as a bad thing, like why am I so fill in the blank, or why don't people like me because of fill in the blank, it's like the Lord is protecting us from bigger things that could happen down the line. And so he has kind of cut us off from those things that could happen down the road in a much worse type of a way. So while you sit here, Therese, and you think, you know, why does it seem like I'm so unlovable? I think I'm a pretty nice girl and whatnot. Could it be that the Lord is wanting to really just hold you to himself right now?
Yes.
And where you're not being distracted by anything else or someone else to come into your life, because he's holding you so close that he's not ready for you to be let go, to be someone's bride or someone's girlfriend. Same thing with you, Tracy. I think about myself in my own situation. Maybe he's holding me back for another position that's going to be bigger than what I left. That's how I'm kind of thinking through all of this as we're talking.
That's on target. I was talking to Daniel about this a few weeks ago. I struggled with singleness. I think most girls do. You're raised in the South, you've got boxes.
Yes.
You check your boxes. You go to college, you get married, you have kids. And that's what you do. I got stuck at the go to college part, you know, and I started looking when I was about 26. What is wrong with me? Why is nobody picking me? I think I'm pretty good. I like sports. I want you to go hunt because I want the house to myself.
Yes.
I mean, you know, there are things that I want you to do. What is wrong with me? And turn that in, and over allowing God to get close enough to me to speak to my heart. The thing that he made me realize, just like you said, when you have a prized possession, you put it away. And it's like God looked at me and said, I want to keep you to myself a little longer.
Yeah.
So instead of looking at it as punishment, like I'm not good enough, I don't have what it takes. No, I want you to myself for a minute. I'm not ready to share you because you're special to me. So instead of looking at it as a punishment, it's really a privilege because you're chosen all over again in a different way, which is why Paul said it's better to be single if you can, unless your body burns with desires, which we're going to talk about that one day.
Yeah.
But, just about how that's the best way to be because you don't have a distraction, because you have allowed the creator of your heart to claim your heart to himself, and you're content in that. And I really am content in that because Daniel asked me a question. He said, are you just saying that because it's something that you want to say, or do you really feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
I really feel that way. I am alone. I'm not lonely.
Mm-hmm.
It's two different things. And I don't mind it. I don't have as many moments of feeling like I'm not good enough or I'm not picked. Do I still think that? Of course I do. I'm a girl in the South. Of course I think that. But I don't think it's a punishment or because I'm not good enough. I think I'm chosen.
Wow. So many people are commenting right now. I think that you're feeling us, you're understanding,
Yeah.
what we're talking about here. And we must say that this is why we do this podcast. We do this podcast so we can have these types of conversations that most people are already feeling, but they've not had before. And we need to recognize those who make this conversation possible.
That's right. The first one is Complete Exteriors, and they have been with us since day one. If you've got a roof leak, if you've got storm damage, that kind of thing, then they are there. You should have them on speed dial. They are local. Basically, these are people that you know from your community. You can call them for just about anything that has to do with your roof. Call them today at 601-326-2755. You can visit their website, CompleteExteriorsMS.com. They're more than a roofing contractor. They are your neighbors, basically.
You know what? And here's the deal. Even if you don't need a roof, because I understand that's like not everybody needs that purchase right now.
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind calling them or finding them on socials and just telling them thank you
Yes,
for sponsoring
absolutely.
the podcast, just so they
100%.
know that you saw it, that would be great.
I love that. I love that idea, Tracy. That is so good. Yes, please tell them thank you so that way we can continue to do this podcast. And something else that happens in our life is that we all make decisions every day. And sometimes our decisions come with consequences. We get nervous, we have anxiety, and there's lots of questions. And when you find yourself in this type of a situation, you need somebody who understands, who listens, offers support without judgment. And Wendy owns A+ bail bonding. Wendy understands. She genuinely cares about her clients. And in fact, there are attorneys all across Mississippi who trust Wendy to maintain confidentiality and provide honest and discreet and compassionate services for their clients. So whether you are an attorney dealing with high-profile clients, or maybe you're just somebody facing legal issues, you can contact Wendy Hoover. She's at A+ Bail Bonding. Her phone number is 601-720-4225, or you can head on over to her website, which is www.A+, so actually spell out the plus word, aplusbondingms.com. Wendy will take care of you with compassion and, of course, a listening heart, and she'll get whatever you need done.
I knew if I kept talking about hitting people,
You were
we
gonna
would
need-
eventually get there.
Right.
So,
Well, guess what?
thanks,
Wendy can help you out.
Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah. Wendy is your girl. She can certainly help you out. And talking about this topic today, I was looking at some scriptures and I saw Psalm 55:22. It says, "He will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken." And when we have these questions, when we have these moments of questioning who we are shaken.
Yeah.
I looked at Romans 10:11. Anyone who believes in him will never be put to shame. And that's one thing that we deal with as human beings and as Christians. Even Christians feel shame. 1 Corinthians 15:57. But thanks be to God, he gives us victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. You know, if the devil can change what we call it, he can determine how we fight it.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Another one that comes to my mind is one my mom quoted all the time. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. And I
Yeah.
always tried to remember that, during times that I didn't feel like I was enough. And, I also want to touch back on the thing about God protecting us as a single person. I love hard. If I love you, I love you.
Yeah. Same.
And I'm not able to really just be one of these casual people, when it comes to relationships or friendships. I mean, y'all both know, like, I'm 100% like, you are my friend.
Yes.
And if you're not my friend, then you're not my friend. But if you are, then, So the problem is I end up in the relationships with the wrong guys. And up until, like we've talked about multiple times on this, up until recently, I picked the wrong friends, and then I would have this bond to them like, no, you're my friend. Come back. Hold up, Well, God has protected me because all the times that I've said in my shame or in my disgust with myself or whatever, I've said, well, nobody ever picked me. Nobody ever kept me. I was never worth keeping. But thank God. Because you know what? The people that I was picking, they were not worth keeping in my life. I mean, they're worth it to somebody. I'm not taking away their worth. But across the board, the people who have left me, thank you, God. But, for some reason, I'll still sit here and I'll tell myself it's my fault. When really, God I always laugh about how God has a big sledgehammer with me. I get on my trail and I start doing what I'm doing. And I'm like, yeah, this is working. This is it. Hold on. It's not really working. Let me just fix this a little bit. Hold on. No, this isn't. And it starts to spiral out of control. And I will cling to whatever it is and try to fix it myself. And then here comes God with that sledgehammer. And everything falls apart and everything goes to crap. And you know what? It's because at the beginning, when God starts giving me those red flags, I didn't listen.
Yeah.
But he's going to get me back. I mean, he will chase me down and bring me home.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you're talking about the sledgehammer. Maybe, and I'm like you with that. Like he's got to come after me when I get gone. But maybe if we'd listened the first time, it's just the one thing we're going to fix. If we had listened then, he wouldn't have needed the sledgehammer.
That is exactly what we're talking about in therapy now.
Yeah.
That whole like when somebody gives you that first sign that maybe this isn't the right fit, instead of being like, no, I'm not going to put my past trauma on you, be like, that's a red flag. You know?
Yeah. I know it's like Hannah, who's on the morning show with me and Nate. She's always like, red's my favorite color, because she always picks red flags.
Yes.
I'm like, girl, you're going to get it together right now when you're 23.
Well, and see where that fits into what we're talking about is that we allow those stupid decisions that we make.
Yeah.
Because because I'm afraid. What if I never find anybody else? What if this is my soulmate? And
what?
Well, and that's
so what? I want to shout it from the rooftops. And Alfie said this too about being single women. Here's the deal. So freaking what if you are not with somebody? Like, I know having a partner is great. And Barbie, I'm not trying to out you or Daniel here because y'all are married. But all I'm saying is, so what? So what?
But let's leave room for the people who that's the desire of their heart. Because where I was going with that is like, that breaks you down. You make these dumb decisions. You're looking so hard for an answer to the pain in your heart that then, because of your decisions and because of this search that can only, for a hole that can only be filled by God, you end up feeling bad about yourself and you start questioning, who am I? And instead of asking, who am I in God's eyes, you're asking, why am I not good enough for this? But yeah, I mean, for me, the desire of my heart has always been to have someone who just sees me and understands me completely. I mean, all I want, I'm good at being single. I've done it my whole life. But do I want that? No. I want to be able to sit down with somebody and just say, this is the kind of day I had, and have them know how my heart works.
Yeah.
And that's what I have wanted from every a-hole that I have ever dated. And every one of them gave me at some point just enough breadcrumbs for me to think that might be there. But you know what? In God's eyes, he's that guy. So why is it that it's so hard to accept that? Well, we're human,
I honestly, and we've never had this conversation before, I cannot wrap my mind around that. Like, I cannot wrap my mind around the fact that you have to have somebody in your life to talk to them and tell them I cannot wrap my mind around it.
Well, it's because you've been alone for so long. I mean,
we're the same age.
Well, no, I know. Well, no, and I'm not saying that's you specifically. I'm saying, like, in general, for me, Like I can sit here, I can't wrap my mind around what it would be like to have it.
Yeah.
But do I want it? Yes. But do I know what it's like? No, because I've done this by myself for so long that I don't understand what that's like, what that feels like. So yeah, there is a part of me that like, it's like if you handed me $1 million right now, I'd be like, what do I do with this? What am I supposed to do with this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, do I put it in the bank? Do I spend it? What do I do? That's how I feel about a relationship. But does that mean I don't want $1 million? No.
I'd rather have $1 million than a relationship.
Well, fair enough.
Do it. And it might be because in our industry, in media, you know, I can't, there are 2 people in my entire building over 6 stations as sales staff and a news department that are still with the person that they married with the first time because our jobs are so stinking demanding. I don't have room.
That is true. But again, that goes back to, wow, how the Lord created us all differently. You know, Therese is like, gosh, I'd love somebody to share my day with. And you're totally opposite, saying, I'm totally fine in my own world and my own cocoon. And so it's all about, you know, how he created us to be. And he gives one desires for this and gives the other desires for something totally different. It's just like with me and all my bling, y'all know anywhere I go, I'm going to have rhinestones somewhere. But
Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
Okay. I think there is power in being okay with where you are.
Yeah.
And not striving. If I would be happy if I just had this. You are. You're okay with where you're at. And I think that's inspiring to a lot of people because you don't have to have a relationship in order to be okay with where you're at. And I think you're the shining star in that, in saying, no, it's okay to be different than what society says you must be like.
That's the thing. It's what society is saying. And I know you didn't mean this, but using a word like cocoon, I'm not hiding from it. You know what I mean? It's just, and I think there's this misconception, since we're talking about how people view us and how we view ourselves, there's this misconception that if you're single, there's got to be something wrong with you, or you're either a lesbian. I've actually asked somebody asked my mom in my 20s, was I a lesbian?
Right.
No.
Right.
You know, or you're too hurt, or, you know, you need to do this. There's all these misconceptions. You can be totally fine at whatever phase you are in life. I know people that are married that wish they weren't.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and that was one thing my grandmother used to always tell me. She said, it's better to be single than wish you weren't.
That's right.
You know, and I don't know. But I think these stereotypes that we put on people, that's the thing. And we can't make other people not stereotype us, but we cannot stereotype us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And, you know, that goes back to what you were saying originally about you get into, you know, your hole and you do this and you hide. Just live where you are.
Well, and okay, so what's weird is this whole conversation is making me withdraw into that like insecurity.
I see
like
you
I'm
doing
about
it.
to, and so I'm going to go ahead and just say all this, and it's really vulnerable, and I'm going to cry. Okay, but
Where's the tissues?
well, no, I don't use tissues.
Okay.
Okay, that's right.
Firefighters
That's right.
don't use tissues.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's what my therapist
what
said.
is it?
Like his
Yeah.
first responders that he treats, none of us use tissues.
Okay.
That's just a thing. And that just snapped me out of it. So anyway, let me go ahead and say what I was going to say. The thing is, like, I have spent so much of my single life saying, I'm fine single. Who needs a man? Like, I mean, I run this. That is my defense. I have been strong. I have been hard. I've been tough. I've been brave. Because you know what? Somebody hurt me so bad when I was in college that all I wanted after he was gone was to prove to him how brave I was. So I became a martial artist. I became a firefighter. I became a crime reporter. I started riding around with cops when they were doing really dangerous things. My whole life was about being brave and being okay, and I can do it myself. And the thing is, yes, as single people, we do get shamed. We get shamed for, why are you alone? Why haven't you had kids? How old are you now? Well, I mean, bring a guy if you want, or a girl. You know, there's the whole thing that comes with it. And then there's the whole, I have to be strong and be okay being by myself. You're okay all by yourself. I know that. I've done it for this many years, and I don't even want to say it out loud because that is an insecurity too.
Yeah.
But do I want somebody to actually care about me more than anything else in their life? Yes, because
Right.
you know what? I have that to give somebody else. So when the Bible says it, and I asked my pastor one day, he actually talked about marriage in church, and he told us to ask questions.
So I stood up on the back row and I said, when it says it's better to be single if you're going to burn with desire, what do you say to somebody who can never find somebody who wants them?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, there is no answer. And so that is something that, yes, I fight with God a lot about. And I fight with other people about it too, because if I say I want somebody, they're like, you don't need to want somebody. You're good by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I do. But you know what? This isn't how I want to die.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just lived out the end of my dad's life with him. I don't have a kid that's going to do that with me. I don't have a husband that's going to do that with me. I'm going to do that by myself. And like I've told you guys before, I'm going to wander off in the woods once I start getting dementia, and they're going to know I'm dead because a dog is going to bring my skull to somebody's doorstep. And that's what I'm afraid of. And that is only one of the reasons that I hope that one day some guy looks at me and says, she's pretty special.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that my heart is fixed enough by that point that I can say, thank you for caring, instead of running the other way, which is also what I do. So to bring all that around to where we are, God is the only one that fixes that.
Yep.
But the thing that I do know is that my whole life, my mom taught us, like, you are a child of the King. We are chosen. And I'm not talking Calvinistic. I'm not trying to get into Presbyterianism here. But at some point, he sat down and he chose us.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, when he mapped out my life, he said, at least for this many decades,
Right.
there's not going to be some dude who's going to take your eyes off me, because like I said, I love hard. And every time I get a boyfriend, all of a sudden it's all about him. And I say, oh, God's in charge of this because I'm praying for him every day. I'm praying for him every day. It becomes idolatry. So I can deconstruct it, but I do want to say my insecurities are exactly in this place that we're talking right now. You know, and it does. It takes me to a place where I'm just a little kid again, terrified of what they're saying about me on the playground.
Well, and obviously this is resonating with our viewers and our listeners right now, because you're commenting, Lauren says that she's loving this vulnerability. And that's what it all goes back to, is when you strip away all of the outside things and you strip away the personas that we have, this is what it all comes down to.
Yep.
And you give that back to the Lord and you say, you know, I am disappointed that you haven't sent me the right partner. And, you know, I'm this age, or I haven't gotten pregnant with a child. That's when you're so real with him, but yet he brings it all back to the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, he is all that we need. Whether we see that here, or whether our eyes are finally opened when we get to heaven and we finally like, yeah, so this is what that was all
But
about.
how do you reconcile that on this side of heaven?
I don't know. I don't know if we can. I think if we did, we would be perfect and we wouldn't need him.
Yeah, if we understood it, we wouldn't need him. You know.
Well, Jesus was perfect and he needed him still.
He did.
So I just wonder for those people that are hurting, and this is where I think sometimes we fall down as people of faith, people that are hurting and searching and needing something. I think we give a bunch of platitudes instead of being absolutely real about what reality is like when you're dealing with not having a child and wanting a child more than anything, or you want to share your life with somebody more than anything, and then that's not happening. What
I'll
do
tell
you
you
do?
what I've had to do, and this is just, again, being very real. It is all for me come back to, I'm being so protective now of my quiet time with the Lord.
Yes. Yeah.
Because when, like you said, how do you reconcile that this side of heaven? I'm just having to dig into the word, dig into him, and say, okay, God, you're just going to have to tell me.
Well, and sometimes we don't reconcile it. I mean, one of the things that we talk about in therapy a lot is, you know, the people who have the biggest hearts, the people, honestly, who are smarter, that kind of thing, you're never going to be entirely happy. I mean, content, joyful, you know, these things that God gives us, sure, but there's going to be a part of you that's never actually happy because you see the things that are missing, or you know, if you got a big heart, you feel them, that kind of thing. I feel like we all, as Christians, we know we're not going to have all the answers here. And Paul talked about the thorn in his side. And I feel like there are things for each of us that are things that we will never quite I think we're going to go to our graves asking God, okay, I get it. Like, I'm yours, but why about this thing? And I feel like that's kind of the whole part of being a Christian is there may not be reconciliation for some of the things.
Doesn't that always go back to trust, though, and complete surrender? That even when you don't understand what you don't understand, you just say, I surrender whatever that will is, or, whatever place that you have put me in, I surrender it, and I believe and I have faith that it's good. Because
How
that's
do
what he
you
says.
surrender it? Though, what is a tangible thing that you can tell somebody that is dealing with this? How do you surrender it?
The Israelites in the desert. So God says, I'm going to take you to the promised land. I can't tell you where it is. You just have to follow me. And so they start walking and they're like, but God, I don't like this situation. God, I don't like that. The bread sucks, God. Well, it took them 40 years on a trip that should have been 11 days.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there's a component here that's like, even when you can't see where you're going, it's about gratitude. It's about trust. It's about when you say surrendering, there are just times, that, and I'm not good at it. I don't mean like I do this, so it's the best way, but sometimes I'll just sit there and be like, I don't get it. So you know what? I'm going to sit in it.
Yeah.
Like I'm just going to sit here in this misunderstanding or disunderstanding or inability to understand and just go, okay, God, and like you talked about it, I guess a couple weeks ago, just do the last thing he told us.
Yeah.
Or like what my dad always said is do the next right thing.
Yeah.
So whatever it is. And there are times that I sit there and I'm like, God, I need you to show me very clearly. Like I need it to come out of the sky and drop on my head like the anvil in the Roadrunner cartoons. Tell me what it is I'm supposed to be doing right now.
But he's such a good God that even when I'm having these moments, and I'm having quite a bit here lately, when I say, just give me the sign, give me the wink, give me something that only me and Lord, to know that I'm on the right path, or that I know that I'm being held. What's that song that Natalie Grant sang?
Held.
Yes.
Being held. That I know that you're seeing me and that you're hearing me. And he gives it every time. Why am I getting teary?
I'm getting teary too. That song always makes me cry.
Me too, every time.
But it's
Every
true.
time
I mean,
hear it.
it's like I was talking about a couple weeks ago, and we all laughed when I said, you're laying face down on the floor sobbing until there's dog hair in the back of your throat. Those are the times that God is the closest.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you're feeling the most alone, that's when you can, like, if you get quiet for a second, just drown out the voices. I think a lot of times they're demonic, that are saying, look how alone you are. There's nobody. I'm bad to like sit there and be like, I'm so alone. Nobody's calling me. Nobody cares. Nobody wanted to go do anything tonight. Nobody wants to be around me. When really I'm expecting everyone in my whole life to be psychic. Like none of y'all are getting the bat signal like Therese needs help, So, but in that moment, if I can drown out those voices, that is when God is exactly right there.
I will tell you one thing I learned. I was raised Baptist with a little bit of Pentecostal on the side.
Baptist-costal, that's what we call us.
You can sleep in a Baptist church. You can't sleep in a Pentecostal church.
Right.
Okay. And watching my aunts and my grandmother pray, I think is where I learned the power in that.
Yes.
Because they prayed with authority. And what I mean by that is they went to God with petitions and they petitioned the Lord and they did it out loud and they prayed out loud. And there is a gift of tongues. There is. And when you pray in the Spirit that way, the devil is called the Prince of Air. And there are times when I'm talking to God, I'm like, I need this to be just you and me. I need you to shut everything else around that's listening, and I need just you and me to have this conversation. There's so much power in that type of prayer. There is so much power in getting on your face and crying out to the only one. He is your last hope. The woman with the issue of blood on her face could only reach his garments, the very hem of it. And enough faith healed it. That's all she had, but it was all she could do, and that's all she needed.
Well, and when we say that's all, I mean, that's everything.
It's everything. But we've got to pray like that. And we've got to do that in front of our kids because we have got to set that precedent that this is how you reconcile those things that you can't reconcile. We don't give prayer enough credit, and we don't give powerful prayer the place that it deserves in our life. And I credit my Pentecostal side of the family for showing me that because in a Baptist church,
Yes.
Yeah.
you do this. In a Pentecostal church, you're like, Chandala, we are going forward and we are calling down the power of Jesus.
Right.
And that's the way it goes. And you see that power because God's like, hey, let's go with it.
It's
and
the posture of surrender.
It is the posture of surrender
Yes.
before somebody. You are standing, if it was your child and your child was going to be killed, unless you petition this judge and you told this judge, wait a minute, I need you to see this. I need you to understand this. Moving that judge to compassion, you can do the same thing with the Lord. You can.
Y'all better watch out. I'm gonna hop up and throw this,
Do it.
this
Do it. We're
microphone
about to
away.
pass a plate. Do it.
I'm running the hallway.
Well-
Daniel. I'm gonna run
And
the
not only
hallway.
that, though, we've got to think about the power of the spoken word. The world came into
Yes.
being at the power of the spoken word.
Yes.
And, I mean, he talks throughout the Bible about literally, coming to God, coming before the throne with authority, that kind of thing. So what you're talking about, it's not just Pentecostal. And I'm a Presbyterian, and maybe we drink and Baptists don't, but Baptists
We
make,
do. We just don't tell anybody.
Right. Y'all just don't speak to people in the liquor store is all. But I mean, the thing is, like in church, we make y'all look like wild people. So I started going to a Southern Baptist church several years back. And at some point, you know what? You start feeling the Spirit, and I started raising my hand while I sang. So I'm just singing like this, and all of a sudden I thought my Presbyterian friends would be like, what is she doing? But that is the power of when you are willing to be vulnerable and open and just love God out loud.
Yes.
In whatever way it is.
And I think sometimes we think surrender is meek.
Yes, I agree.
It is not meek.
Not.
It is. That's where you turn the power switch on.
It is
When you
strength.
surrender, and boy, you're ready to go at that point.
Well, we have gone on much longer than we typically try to do. So I hope, look at this. Alfie says, I'm here for the holy rolling.
Yes. Yep. Alfie's my Pentecostal sister.
So we have gone on. This was a little bit longer discussion than we typically do, but I think it was so needed. It was so warranted. I know it was needed for me, and
Y'all don't tell anybody what I said about feeling alone and needing a boyfriend because now
we don't need you to be
y'all
in
don't tell
Therese's
anybody
DMs.
that will ruin my street cred. Okay. Also, the weirdos will hit my DMs. So
Yeah, and
I
just a
didn't-
side note for the guys, stop sending those pictures. You're the only one impressed with those.
right.
Okay,
That's
back
fair.
to you, Therese.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Barbie has covered her
I'm
face.
closing my eyes. I see no evil. I hear no evil. I speak no.
Oh, I've seen evil, and it needs to get out of my
We've
DMs.
all seen some evil. And,
Oh, we'll be
but
right
anyway,
back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cut to commercial on that one. But anyway, we hope that today's discussion has made you feel a little bit more comfortable in having these same discussions, whether that same discussion is with someone else, like what we've been doing here today, or whether that discussion is with the Lord and just petitioning Him and offering your heart of surrender for what He wants to do in your life today. This has been good, y'all.
It's been good. This is what lunch is like, in case you wonder.
Yes.
This is the most natural, organic thing that I think we've ever done this.
And just for what it's worth, I'll probably burst into tears when we're done. Usually I do
Fantastic.
that during work. I
Yeah.
mean, during lunch and
Yeah.
work. I mean, I do it across the board.
It's almost kind of like we have an after show after the show.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You know, that might be an idea.
Tune into the Patreon
Yeah,
for more.
that might be an idea here coming soon. But we love y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for all of your encouraging comments. Anytime that you've got a suggested topic that you want us just to kind of delve into, please feel free to message us and let us know because we'd love to hear about it. Until then, we will see y'all next time on Y'all Listen Here.